Okay, so we are back to the third installment of factoring. And this one is going to focus on when your first number is 1. Now, what I mean by that is when we have a quadratic, it is a plus bx plus c. That is the basic form of it. So what I'm referring to is this first number when it's 1. Okay, that is the simplest factoring that there is. So let's go ahead and get started. Now remember what I told you, the first step is always look for the greatest common factor. Always do that. So especially this one, since I told you A was supposed to be 1, but it's not, it's a 3. Okay, so the question is, what does 3, 48, and 189 have in common? And 3 will go into all of those. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 48 divided by 3 is 16. And 189 divided by 3 would be what, 63? Okay. Again, the 3 is just going to hang around. Now, when I am factoring quadratics, guys, factoring quadratics, all quadratics are going to factor, again, to be basically the backwards FOIL, 2 binomials. Okay? It's going to be a binomial times a binomial. So anytime you see something of this form, you should automatically know that, hey, that's what my answer is going to look like, a binomial times a binomial. So again, this is the easiest method that there is here. And so what I'm going to be looking at is what are things that, and you can do this all different ways. Some teachers do an X. I just usually do it as a kind of a chart, but whichever way, if you're doing it as an X, it would be you want factors that add to be a negative 16 and multiply to give you 63. Okay? Again, I just write my 63 down and I say, what are my factors of 63? Okay? So when I start going through there, it would be 1 and 63. I definitely know that doesn't work. 2's not going to go in there. 3 would be 21. 4 won't go in there. 5 won't go into 63. 6 won't go into 63. 7, will 7 go into 63? Is that 9? So 7 and 9 is 63. Okay? Now, as you're going on up, we're already back to 9, so I can't go anymore. Now, when I add, what I want to know is which one of these will add up to be a negative 16 and multiply to give you 63. Well, since they have to multiply and give me 63, but add and give me a negative 16, then these both have to be negatives. Okay? So the question is which one of these adds up to be negative 16? And most of you can probably say, hey, it's that one. Okay? So what happens then is when I come over here, we'll keep that in mind, those two numbers that we just said. So I first say, remember we're doing FOIL. So this number, this first number, remember FOIL, so keep that in mind. When I multiply my first 2, I'm going to get that number. Okay, so what do I need to multiply to get p squared? Well, it's p and p. That's the easiest thing there is. Okay? When I do the last, again, the last is going to be these 2. And these 2 we said have to multiply and give me 63. Well, those are the factors over here. Okay? But I also need them to add and give me 16. So I know these are the ones I'm going to use. So I'm going to do a negative 7 and a negative 9. It doesn't matter which way you do it. I could have put a negative 9 and a negative 7. Does not matter. Okay? And we know that 7 and 9 add to be 15. So what I want you to think about then is if you do your outside and your inside, okay, there you're going to get a negative 7p minus 9p, and that is your negative 16p. Okay? So keep in mind what FOIL is, because really you're just going backwards. Okay? Final answer. Okay, number 10. Now your A is 1, so there's no greatest common factor. I already have 1. So again, I'm going to set up my two parentheses. Set up my two parentheses. I already know in order to get A squared, I have to have an A and an A. The other thing that you can think of if you want, I need a negative 32, which means that I'm going to have 1 plus and 1 minus. That's the only way I can get a negative number if I multiply. Now I'm going to go over here with my 32, and I'm going to start looking at all the factors. Now, you could have, I said 1 has to be plus, 1 has to be minus. So you could have a minus 1 and a plus 32, or you could have a, whoops, keep doing that. Or you could have a positive 1 and a negative 32. Now, when I'm writing them, I don't usually write all the different ways that way. I just find the two that give me 4, and then I figure out what the signs are. In other words, let me just show you. So I'm going to do negatives here. So that would be a negative 2 and 16. That it multiplies to give me 32. But that does not add to get 4. And so I'm going to keep doing 3. 3 won't go in there. 4, 4, and 8. Okay? And so I'm going to add those two together. That gives me 4. If that had been a negative 4, then I just would have switched the signs. Okay? So here's my answer, 4 and 8. Again, it's negative 4, so I'm going to put the 4 there, and a positive 8. Okay? And that's all you have to do. Okay, number 11. Again, greatest common factor, because you can see there's a number that'll go into 6 and 60. So I'm going to take out a 6. That leaves me with p squared minus 10. Okay? Now, what I'm looking at on this one, because, and you might want to put this in, but you don't have to, since there's no p, I'm going to put a 0 there. Because what we're looking at is we're looking for factors of a negative 10 that will add and give me 0. So, you know, I've got 1 and 10, 2 and 5. One of those has to be negative. That gives me 9. That's not close. That gives me 3. That's not close. Are there any other factors? And the answer is no. So when I look at this, there's no factors of 10 that will give me 0. So that means that this piece, part of it here, will not factor. Okay? Won't factor. In other words, this technically is as low as it will go. So not everything will factor. Okay? Not everything will factor. Okay, number 12. Again, in front of the R is just a 1, so there's no greatest common factor. I'm going to get my two parentheses. I need a negative 70. Since it's negative, I know 1 has to be plus and 1 has to be minus. I just randomly put them in there. I know the only way to get R squared is R and R. And now I need to go find those factors of 70. Okay? So I always just start at the top. 1 and 70. 2. Yeah, 2 will go in there, 35. And one of these needs to be negative, so I'll just put it here. 3, will 3 go into 70? It won't go in there. 4, will 4 go into 70? 4 won't go in. 5 will definitely go in. So 5, that'll give me what? 14. Now, as I'm doing this, what I'm mentally doing is adding these together. And so far, I know I'm not to the negative 3. So remember, our goal number that we're shooting for is a negative 3 when we add the two together. 6, how about 7? 7 and 10. And yes, that is 3. Okay? But again, guys, I need a negative 3, not a positive 3. All I have to do is switch the signs. So this is actually what I'm using. So when I come over here to my factoring, the 7 is positive and the 10 is the negative. Okay? 13. Again, look for a common factor. I can take out a 4. So x squared minus x minus 12. Again, I'm going to set my two parentheses up. Only way to get an x squared is an x and an x. I have, again, a negative 12, so I'm going to need one positive and one negative. I'm going to come over here, and I want to know what are factors of 12 that will give me a negative 1. Okay, a negative 1, so the negative 1 is my goal number. Okay, and some of you, the smaller these numbers are, the easier. If you don't need to do this table over to the side, that's awesome. If you could see the answer, just go right into the answer. But some people can't, so we've got to do this. Negative 1 and 12, negative 2 and 6. Again, I'm looking for the number 1, and none of these, so this is 11. I could do this as I go. This is 4. Negative 3 and 4 gives me 1. Okay, so I've got the 1. I need it to be a negative 1. All I need to do is switch the signs. So I come over here to my problem, and the 3 is the positive, and the 4 is the negative. Okay, number 14. Again, this is a 1. So therefore, I don't have any common factor. I can go ahead and get my two parentheses set up. The only way to get an a squared is an a and an a. I need to get a positive 24. Now, here's the trick on this one. I need to get a positive 24. And so remember, we could have two positives or we could have two negatives. Both will give me a positive value. But here is what you have to look at. When I add them, I need them to be negative, which means that both of these signs need to be negative. That's the only way I can add and get a negative. So, rule of thumb, okay? If this is positive, you just look to this sign and that tells you what's inside here, okay? If this is negative, then you've got to have one of each, okay? Pretty easy. Okay, I'm going to look for factors of 24 that give me 11. So 1 and 24, and I could put the negative on them if I want. Negative 2 and a negative 12. No, that's 25, that's 14. Negative 3 and a negative 8. If I add those, yep, there's a negative 11. Okay, so negative 3, negative 8. Voila, you're done. Okay, one more or two more and then we're done. So 2x squared plus 10xy. So first look at your 2 and your 10. I can take out a 2. I have an x squared and an x. Remember, it is always the lowest, so I can take out an x. There is a y1 here, but there's no y here. It's an understood y0, so that means I can't take any y's out. Okay, so that would be all that I could take out. Now we're actually going to do a division. That's going to give me just the x because the 2's cancel. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Okay, again, if you need to come to the side and do that, that's 5. X's cancel, and I've got a y left. Okay, final answer. Now, there is no square in here. Guys, this is a first power. Whoops, wrong. What did I have? I just had an x. This is a first power, and this is a first power. Once you get things down to a first power, they don't factor anymore. Okay, that is as far as that goes. Okay. (16). Very interesting because this one has an x squared and a y squared. Okay, so we're going to just start off. There's no numbers in front of this, so there's no common factors. There is no x on the 12, so no common factor there. So I'm going to go ahead and get my parentheses set up. To get an x squared, I know I have to have an x and an x. Now here's the trick on this one. You also have to have a y squared, which means on this end I need a y and a y. Now when you do FOIL, guys, and you do first, you're going to take x times y. That's going to give you that xy that's in the middle, okay? Inside, there's your xy. So it just kind of automatically works, and you don't have to do anything with that. I'm going to look at the positive 12. So factors of 12 that add to be 7. They're both positive. And can you do that one without doing a table tree over here? Factors of 12 that add to be 7. And hopefully you know 3 and 4. Whoops. Okay, and I'm done. Because everything has a power of 1. Okay, so that is a lot of your factoring in which your front number is 1. And again, in terms of your factoring of quadratics, trinomials, for the most part, that is the easiest type that you're going to have. So we're going to go on to when your A is not 1.